the great state of Louisiana, they've just passed a law uh, requiring schools to have the Ten Commandments just on display in classrooms. And just to give you a flavor of how this has made liberals seem red, I want to read just the beginning of a story about this from the Guardian. The Guardian of Communism newspaper. They say Louisiana's decision to force public schools to display the Ten Commandments is the latest fallout from a spate of controversial rulings from the U.S. Supreme Court, which has opened up a Pandora's box that is fueling efforts to turn America into a theocratic state.
Well, I'm old enough to remember sitting in an elementary school classroom, a public school, PS 71 in the Bronx, and on the wall to my right were the Ten Commandments. That was in the 1960s. But then in 1980, in the case of Stone v. Graham, the Supreme Court struck down a statute requiring the posting of the Ten Commandments in a classroom. And by the way, isn't it strange how Supreme Court cases of landmark significance involving religion and morality are eponymous? Stone v. Graham. The commandments are written in stone. Roe v. Wade. The embryo is a kind of human Roe. And there's another case that I won't mention, which is equally eponymous and quite shockingly so, involving the so-called right to sodomy. So I find that an interesting little tidbit. But I don't know what the Supreme Court will do with that now. Because under the Lemon test, you have to articulate some kind of secular purpose. So you have to say, I don't know, the promotion of good morals, because the Ten Commandments, after all, bind everyone. Thou shalt not kill. Do you have a problem with that?
Right. Which one do you have a problem with? The stealing, the killing?
I guess the first 5 of the Decalogue would cause a problem.
Right.
But the negative precepts, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. What? That's just basic law.
Right.
It's even reflected in the positive law. So I guess they have a problem with thou shalt not have false gods before me. Or thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath day. So, that's a problem for them, but there are still some places that have Sunday closing laws. Bergen County, New Jersey, for example. Just because the people have the right to decide that on Sunday there will be no commerce. So I don't know how this statute will fare. It will certainly be struck down by a district judge at some point. Because in that circuit, the district courts are loaded with liberals, even in the circuit that includes Louisiana. So we'll see. But it may make its way to the Supreme Court. But if the statute is struck down and that invalidation is upheld by the circuit court, I don't know if the Supreme Court would even take it.
The Supreme Court, who, by the way, delivers opinions underneath a painting of Moses the lawgiver giving the Ten Commandments, right?
And takes an oath to God, so help me God.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, and again, at least, American history is certainly very complicated. You've written a whole book on at least the first half, a little more than the first half of American history. So certainly we would agree America was not founded as a Catholic state, but it's certainly throughout its history. You mentioned just the Ten Commandments in the classroom, but there are references to God, to basic religious truths, the Ten Commandments, all throughout our history, through starting with the Declaration of Independence, the Federalist Papers, all the way through. Again, so although it has not been a Catholic country, it has been a country where religious speech has not been banned from public life.
Yeah, well, there's a Supreme Court case involving the Ten Commandments. I mentioned it in the book. I forget the name of the case as I sit here. It was a 5-4 decision in which a public display of the Ten Commandments was barely upheld as something utterly devoid of religious significance. This was a purely historical monument. But if it were to be the case that it had any religious intention behind it, of course, it must be struck down. So you can make these, symbolic representations of religious things as long as it's clear they don't have any religious significance.
Right.